Hello, Savannah. Hello, hello, hello. This is Kesha Gibson Carter with another edition of Kandily Kesha coming to you this Monday. What a week we have had in Savannah. What a weekend we have had in Savannah. More of the same as it relates to crime. Tonight, I've invited a handful of guests to come in so that we can have a discussion, so that we can talk as advocates and activists about where we are and what can be done about it, what is or is not being done about it, and talk about some of the past approaches we have taken, what has worked and what hasn't worked. But first, I want you to listen to this. This is Savannah's reality. This is our Savannah. This mimics what's going on in the Ukraine, essentially. You have people who are hiding and running from gunfire. You have people who are succumbing to gun violence on the streets. We are at war, Savannah. We are at war against ourselves. As we approach where we are in Savannah, as it relates to crime, what is and is not being done about it, we do not want to relegate what we can do to what's happening at the national level. Oftentimes you hear politicians say, crime is up everywhere. Well, we here in Savannah, we have the resources and we have the very capacity to chip away at the fact that crime is up. And it's no secret that crime is up. Crime is up no more today than it was when we entered office. We are on the same trajectory. When this administration entered office in 2020, within our first 2 months, we had eclipsed the number of homicides than the previous year. To date, we have had more African-American men and boys, and now a young woman, 15 years old, die at the hand of gun violence. We have had more of them die on the watch of a majority African-American council. Why does that make a difference? It makes a difference because if we ourselves are not willing to provide support, aid, and incorporate methods and measures by which to erode at this data and these statistics, we can't expect for anyone else to do it. And so what we do know is the crime we are experiencing in Savannah is essentially a public health issue. Bullets do not have names. They have no respect of person by way of gender or economic status. But what we do have are far too many mothers and fathers burying their children to unnecessary and senseless gun violence. Friday night at 9:45, a 15-year-old female killed in the 900 row of Yomacraw Village. Dollar Tree near Abercorn Street in Tibet was robbed at gunpoint. A 32-year-old male and a 30-year-old female was shot on Bull Street at Broughton. The male succumbed to his injuries and died. Sunday morning at 10 a.m., a 57-year-old female was shot to death in the 900 block of East 33rd. A suspect has been charged and arrested. This was essentially possibly a domestic situation. The individuals knew each other. If you were to chart or map the shootings and the episodes of violence, we will find that a great majority of it is happening in our public housing developments. There once was a time when we had public resource officers, public housing officers assigned. Right now, they are far between. And so here we are today, Dr. Teray, Pastor Small, you all have been on the front lines of activism for some of the most pressing issues facing our community. And as we arrive at needing to tackle and chip away at the criminal element that is running rampant in our community, what is it that you have to offer with regard to what it is? Because we know that there's not just one thing that can be done when it comes to what we're facing here.
Well, here's my take on it. Then. Good evening, Dr. Teray and Alderwoman. We are. I'm kind of caught up because I understand the weight of the families, both of the person who dies and the person who commits the crime or kills someone. I hadn't long been pastor of Litway, and a young boy from our church, they called me and said he'd been shot. And I ran over into his village, and he was laying on a back step of a porch dying. And of course, I got down close and blood was everywhere. And you never forget screams. Not his mother wasn't there. She's still a member of Litway. Matter of fact, she functioned as my pastor's aide president, just that little group that looks out for the preacher. And I've been her pastor these 40 some years. I mean, almost 40 years. And this happened over 35 years ago, and it still has me shook to my core. How do you get the news that your 15-year-old child has expired foolishly, more or less? And what do you do when you're a young man and you wake up after those 6 or 7 months in prison, and it's Christmas, and you realize you have spent your last Christmas ever with your family because you've been there for Labor Day and Halloween and Thanksgiving, and you're just recognizing the fact that this is how it's going to be for you for the rest of your life, because you can get a life sentence with no chance of parole. And if you're 25 or 30 years old, you live a normal life of another 50 or 60 years, and you never see the light of a free walking day. You never get to walk in a park. You never get to go to a football game with your friends. You never get to do all the nevers you ever would think you would want to do. And not only do we have to do something, we have to do everything we can think of. They say don't throw money at the problem. Throw money at the problem. They say don't pity them. Pity them. They say don't incarcerate them. Incarcerate some so others won't go and let them get the lesson. We have to do everything in the playbook. And we in Savannah, Georgia, are doing almost nothing in the playbook. When Lumpkin was the chief of police, I, having experienced the fact that I had a drug intervention program where I went to prisons when people were being released, put them in our halfway house, which was registered with the Department of Corrections. And I did that for 20 years. So I had an idea and have ideas of how to do this, how to, you can't stop crime, but you can lower the percentages of crime and violence in an area precipitously if you take the right steps. And I gave him and I've given Minter and the mayor, both Deloach and Johnson, a simple thing that would lower it percentages. Just buy Twit cards. Because if they get Twit cards, if they want to keep those $17, $18, $20 hour jobs, they can't get high because you're going to be randomly drug tested. And if you then give them that money, you change their trajectory. You give them something to go to work for. Well, how do you know it would work, Pastor Small? Because when Linda Wilder Bryant's son died, I instituted a purchasing of Twit cards for anybody who asked me. And we've been doing that personally for those 6 years. And we have had 2 people. One went on a little probation violation for not being home when he was supposed to, and another for a misdemeanor. 2 people out of almost 200 people that we bought Twit cards for. And it costs someplace short of $20,000 total for all that help. But if we spend $100,000 to have somebody called a crime liaison or reduction crime person, and they don't affect anybody, they've never been in the hood, they don't go to the parks. Oh, come on. If you keep running the same play, you keep getting the same results. And we can do this. We can be better than this.
We have to be better than this. And you said something, Pastor, that's so true. You said that we are barely doing anything. I said to somebody today, while we have leaders who are comparing what we are experiencing here by way of our police bleed, the fact that we are losing more police officers than we are recruiting, the fact that gun violence has steadily increased since our tenure started, and we have surpassed each year the number of homicide and gun violence from the previous administration and compared to what happened on the previous administration's watch. In addition, our aggravated assaults per capita is now being compared to that in Atlanta. And so there has to be a multifaceted approach. I said to someone today, we trip over money and flush money down the toilet under the Gold Dome. We have enough resource. We have enough money in our coffers, known and unknown, to take a deep dive into solving this problem. But because we do not have the political will, when you look at who crime is affecting, a 15-year-old female, somebody's baby, this child quite possibly was a student within our local school district. When you look at who crime has happened to and who has succumbed to gun violence in this community, they are children who are matriculating in the corridors of our local schools. They are members of Chatham County. A vast majority of the ones I'm speaking of are residents of Savannah. And so what is it? Collectively, can't our commission, our council, and our Board of Education come to the meeting of the minds and say, listen, Joe Biden released via the American Relief Protection Act, Joe Biden released millions of dollars in communities because he knew the adverse implications that were going to come with COVID that were inclusive of mental health issues, crime, violence, poverty. And as a result of that acknowledgement, he specifically carved out a formula that said X percentage of these dollars, 95 million Board of Education, 55 million Chatham County, 65 million City of Savannah, nearly $300 million has been poured into our community. Half of that money is already in the coffers of each of those governmental entities. What is it that the leaders of those three entities, our Board of Education president, our county commissioner, our mayor of Savannah, why can't you come to the table and say, how can we use a percentage of this resource that we never ever had before to look at this public health issue our community is facing? It takes more than political will, Pastor. It takes an accountability piece, because politicians will not act and will not do unless there is a call and a cry. Dr. Jamal Teray, tell me about that call and that accountability piece.
And one of the things that I share with folks, let me back up on something. And that when we talk about the young lady, the girl, the child that got killed, we need to emphasize and say she was a child, she was a girl. Because with other people, they go and say that, oh, it was a child and a girl, and they might be 20 years old. But with us, sometimes, again, that goes to show how they desensitize us with regards to this. And so that's why I'm saying that was a girl, that was a child, that even when I first heard it, people say it was a female, and I said the same thing. And then later on, that's when I found out later on today that it was a 15-year-old girl. That's somebody's child that will no longer be here. That now that parent or parents and family members and friends must not bury that child. They must do a homegoing service for that. And then also, not only that, but then her friends, all the people around her, and that the community, that the entire trauma that's right there. And so that's why, Alderman Gibson Carter, you talk about accountability. There's been a lack of accountability that right now. So we have right here in Savannah, Chatham County, Georgia, and let's say just in Chatham County itself, that we see homicides being committed. We see shootings being committed in our communities, and it's like it's normal.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, Jamal. Think about this. How strong was the news coverage? No, I know it got around the hood.
Right. Oh, yes.
But was there any outrage, oh my gosh, my goodness, here's a child? Now, if this child was 15 years old and lived in Arsley Park,
yes,
Landings, okay, she would be John Benet Ramsey. Okay, a child that died 20 years ago that they're still telling stories about. But here's the thing that's killing us. We are in a position where the press, a free press, is essential. That's why it's mentioned in the Constitution and Bill of Rights so early. Okay, so because without a free press that's functioning, people have no idea of what they should be outraged about.
Right.
Okay, now you got the little girl, but now there was a young man killed also on the weekend, and he's going to be that young black man who must have been out there doing something wrong, who must have been out there slinging drugs or something like that. The young man was, help me, the drummer at Second Ebenezer Baptist Church. They had church Sunday with wailing and mourning and having a hard time even getting through serving the Lord, because that young man was not in his post where everybody wanted him to be on Sunday morning.
And Reverend Smalls, Reverend Dr. Smalls, and that's correct. That's what I'm saying. They desensitize us. We're so desensitized right now that even we are not concerned about it. That's why I had to go do a video, because I'm like, this is a problem. This is an epidemic. This is a public health epidemic in this city, in this county, and we're not saying anything about it, and we desensitize it. So now here it is. You have 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year, 10-year-olds who are growing up in this, and they're thinking, and again, like they said, they're making it the norm. And so here it is. We, even with regards to the awful media that we have here, we don't even hold them accountable. But then even with that, we don't even go and then go to our own media and say, hey, we need to talk about this. We need to have a conversation about this.
We don't have a media. What media? We don't have a media. I'm sorry, sir.
And that's why, and we making no demands, and then that's the media. But then also, because you talk about the states, Reverend Smalls know about the states. They have the 4 states, and the press will be the 4th estate. The press is for the whole everybody accountable. with regards to the religious group, with regards to the power group, with regards to the politicians. That's what sort of happened. Then the commoners, as they like back in the day. But then,
when you have a situation like we have here in Savannah, where the media affiliates, both print and television, are bought and owned by the establishment who frames the narrative and spin the news. And if you look at it, TOC, SAV, and JCL and Savannah Morning News, they all are supposed to be competitors, but almost down to the minute, they are reporting on the very same news from the very same angle. It's like, are you really serious right now? Like, please wake up and recognize that the electorate and the citizens of this community are far smarter than what you know. I asked John McMasters to come on and give us a few nuggets with this piece of, with regard to the media, because he knows as well as you all, in 2019, Savannah Morning News endorsed every single loser in that election.
Sure did.
They endorsed every single candidate who lost their races, and they endorsed every single candidate who raised 3 to 5 times more, in my case, almost 100 to 1, than their opponents.
Yes.
And from that point on, they essentially stopped making endorsements. And that was despite the fact that they were spinning and being unfair and biased in their reporting. And so here's where I come with the piece of accountability, Dr. Teray, as it relates to our community. The media has to understand that they have a great responsibility in how safe we are and how safe we are not. Because when you are reporting accurately, if you were reporting accurately on crime and the city's response or lack of response since January of 2020, by now, Van Johnson would have been held more accountable. But because they were providing cover as opposed to coverage, we now have what we have. Now they have to backpedal and try to make this right. It makes no sense that they do not take a position of being or engaging in journalistic integrity that only helps our citizenry become accountable. Well, it helps the power brokers become accountable. And how do we do that? The media runs on advertisement. Local businesses and national corporations, they should be holding these media affiliates accountable. You can't run my logo or my business if your paper is going to spew trash and garbage. If your stations are only going to have, if your reporters are only going to be weekend talking heads and not provide adequate coverage so that these communities know, again, and what's the bottom line here? The bottom line is this is a public health issue. Yes, more individuals are dying who are Black. But that does not say that you are exempt and that all this crime is situational. It is not. I know we will not be looking to name a park after this baby who lost her life. That won't be happening.
But you know that an FCC license, and I own 3 of them for radio stations, is a public trust. It's a public trust.
Ours is broken. So how do we approach it?
Our trust has been broken, and I've been functioning in media, in and around media now for about 30, 40 years, and I know true and honest reporting. We are close in our local jurisdiction. We are closer to Fox News than we are to anything else. And I need people to understand that means you're just going to have to work harder to get the information that's true. You're going to have to grind to really know which way the wind is blowing. For instance, okay, and I'm talking about this because it will affect crime. Because you cannot subjugate and inform people. You cannot overcome people who have intellect and understanding and information. And in our situation, the process is so blinding that we can have them get to the point where they will send one flyer to the Black community and another flyer to the white community.
Mm-hmm.
We're having that happen right now in races that are being run right now in 2022.
Yes, sir.
When you get the flyers with former mayors on them and 8 or 9 other blacks on them, and you got a white Democrat candidate, your ear should go up. Well, why all these? Why don't he have a mix of white and black people on here? Is he trying to tell us something? And has he been to any of our churches?
That's straight ignorance. I've never seen something so dumb in my life.
Okay, but listen, I know it doesn't seem like that's part of the problem, but our young people look at that and know that the deck is stacked. They know that the game is rigged. Now, how do you know, Leonard? Because I was a young man going to Armstrong State University. And at the end of my first year, I saw some sophomores who never got to be juniors drop out of Armstrong and go to work for white engineering companies in Savannah. And I saw students graduating with engineering degrees from Savannah State who couldn't get a job in Savannah. And at the end of commencement, you heard this, like Ross Perot said, we had this great sucking sound of intelligence leaving Savannah as soon as pomp and circumstance was over. And we need to understand that was by design. Our young people with intelligence and innovation and power and skill academically and intellectually were leaving here hand over fist, and still do, by the way. And what we've got to do is we've got to retain those so they can give the opportunities to the left out and left behind. If you don't, if you have a brain drain every year at the end of graduation, then this is what we end up with. We have had the same rate of poverty, and poverty breeds crime, for the last 40 years. And we are not in a situation in the city of Savannah where poverty should not have changed. There are people that have gotten filthy rich around us who were natives here. And we particularly the citizens in general, but the black citizenry in particular, needs to be aware when you're being had, when you're being tricked. If the government sends money for small businesses, and before the application period opens, they give the money away, and then they give the money to in a city that's more than half black. They give it to 40 others and 2 blacks. Less than 5% of that money went to more than half of the community. That is wrong. That it's not just fiscally wrong. I'm a preacher. That's sinful.
Yes. It was, and I'll take it a step further, Pastor. It was criminal.
It was criminal.
It was criminal is essentially what it was. And so when we look at, I want you all to listen to something else here. I don't know if you can hear it, but this is a commercial of a new news affiliate making an appeal for the community to come back to news. Listen to this. Let's see.
No choice. No choice. If you've been looking for real news, you've had no choice until now. News Nation is new. We're different. We're not taking sides or leaning into political agendas. If you're looking for the news without the noise, you have the freedom to choose. Come back to something different. Come back to balance. Come back to fearless reporting. Come back to the news. News Nation. News for all America.
When I saw this, I just had to chuckle because if you all remember, there was a billboard on White Bluff in Montgomery Crossroads that Alderwoman Blakely talks about a lot, and it said, "Social media is not the news." Right. Well, I was so tickled when I saw this morning. I had to rewind it and record it and share it because it showed me that the work of Unity Action, Political Action Committee, the work of All Things Relevant, and the work of Better Savannah is working. Amen. And I would imagine that affiliates like yours across this nation are changing the game.
Mhm.
Changing the game. So you have a national news station, News Nation, making an appeal to the public to come back to news because they're going to be fair, they're going to be balanced, and they're not going to take sides. And that in its totality essentially is what we carved out here today. And I just want to add that the reason why this piece is relevant to what we're talking about where crime is concerned is because, as I stated, this is where we start and stop with the accountability piece. If the public is not informed, if they are not accurately informed, they cannot adequately hold their representatives accountable. And so for 18 years now, 16 in the first district and 18 to date, Van Johnson has gaslit the people. And the light is now on, and the light is now shining bright. And no longer are you allowed to go about telling people what you think they want to hear, not realizing that you have this aggressive and progressive group of women, myself, Alderwoman Blakely, and Alderwoman Lanier on council, who are willing, via these media affiliates we've connected to online, and you, Pastor Small, you, Dr. Teray, John McMasters, and Chuck Fagan, and thank God for Julius Hall, who give us a voice. If it were not for these platforms, we would be dead in the water. Because, you know, people put their trust in politicians because they are incapable, not because of the lack of intelligence, but oftentimes with the lack of time, the lack of energy, and the lack of the ability to associate in these arenas where they can be a voice or have a voice. They put their trust in a politician. They put their faith in a politician. They put their faith and trust in a person who they think is a winner. But what do you do? What do you do when you learn that you are on a losing team?
Well, you know, I've got a partner of mine, preacher, who didn't know much about politics in terms of personalities. And he listened to me, and he said to his parishioners that we were voting for Dietrich because his church is in that district. And they voted like a fist. And then he came back when he realized that the promises were not being kept. The intentions that were spoken had no real meaning and zero longevity. I mean, as soon as he got up there, maybe within 2 months, the preacher called me and said, "Man, my people got me trying to make me give an account for telling them to vote for that man." And every once in a while, when I go over there to visit, I talk to a couple of the people. I'm Small, I don't know what you saw in that boy, but here's what I want you to understand. Our folk are getting tired of beating the bushes and believing the lies.
Yep.
And this deception was not arbitrary. It was intentional. They knew before they went that when they got there, they were going to do exactly what they're doing. And so on Sunday afternoon, me and a group of my partners sat around a round table, deciding who's going to do what, and telling and putting together a group of candidates, not for the elections this year, but for the city elections next year. The plan to undo this mess is on the table. Heads will roll. I'm telling the people up there who are in the Johnson clique, don't get used to those spots because you will not be staying in them. And people say, "Well, why you be so hard with them?" Because they're hard on us. Our children are dying. Our families are suffering. The monies that was sent, how could it be that some of the money that was sent from the federal government for the relief during the COVID in the city didn't all get spent? How could that be? That's impossible.
There are so many ills. I mean, the weeping time, crime, the millage rate, crime, Nothing but weeping time. We think about the injustices that happen within our police department, the officer involved shootings, the gentleman who was found dead. I'm not going to say died. I'm not going to say killed, because we still have not seen the report. But there are so many.
You still have not seen the report?
We still have not seen the report, sir. There are so
many. A year later.
A year later, yes.
A year later. Okay.
And God bless William Harvey's mom and his family, and to all of the families who have had to bury their loved ones, their child, their grandchildren, to senseless gun violence. Our heart goes out to you. You know, I don't want to have to go to another rally. I don't want to have to go to another vigil. As a sitting elected servant, as I call myself, I think it's disingenuous and not very heartfelt to show up when I know that from where I'm sitting, not enough has been done. I feel dirty. I feel filthy. I feel guilty when I go and hug on these people and love on them, knowing full well that everything, as you acknowledged at the top of the show, Pastor Small, all resources have not been thrown at this issue. I'm telling you what everything I know and God loves. If this was happening to any other demographic, we would have the National Guard. We would have all kinds of mutual aid, all kinds of programs, and it's just not enough. It's just not enough. And as a candidate for mayor of the city of Savannah, I don't intend to use this as a pitching post of a platform. I'm not going to pimp somebody's loss. What I want to do is I want to continue to call Van Johnson out until he does something. I don't want people to continue to lose their lives so that I can prove that this guy is not worth the ground he walks on. I don't want to go down that road. I don't want people to have to lose their lives so that I can be right. What I want to do right now is to save lives today. I dare you, Van Johnson, to have us go into executive session, talk about what our real issue is here, where our policing is concerned, and let's discuss the personnel. Let's discuss the open letter and the open rebuke from these police officers. You know, guys, we talk a lot about defunding the police and police officers and police brutality. Well, I know that if I hear a bump in the night, the first number I'm going to dial is 911. I want to be full, open, and clear. I support police officers, and I know that there are far more who are capable and willing to protect and serve. And as an elected servant, I think we should be protecting and serving them. These men and women in uniform should not be put in positions where they could possibly lose their lives, lose their careers, or lose their freedom even. And so there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance. And we need a leader who can recognize that. Right now, our department is down more than 100 police officers. And as my husband say, Kesha, it's 101. You forgot the one that goes to get Van Johnson's breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so what we want to do is, again, we're going to put it out there. We're going to let it be known as clear and as harsh as it's happening to these families. And one thing for certain and two things for sure, of all of the complaints and the judgment and the ridicule I get, Pastor, Dr. Teray, you know who is not complaining or who's calling foul against me? That mom who doesn't know where her next 2 nights are coming from in the Motel 6. You know who's not complaining? That dad who's busting his behind down there in the hospitality industry, making under $10 an hour, no more than 11. And he's having to be taken away from his family. And we expect for him to plug in and raise his kids, but he has to have 2 more jobs. You know who's not complaining about my passion? Who's not complaining about me calling out this stuff? That mom, that grandparent who has to bury her grandchild. You know, so we are going to go forth and we're going to continue to hold us accountable. And I want you all to start looking at Chatham County government. And as much as the city of Savannah is responsible and responsive to our community, we can't let Chatham County off the hook.
No, we can't.
They, if not more than us, are responsible for where we are. And so the crime that is happening in Savannah belongs to Chatham County.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to continue to make these things plain to you. Open your eyes. And when we ask for you all to mobilize and take souls to the polls and moms to vote on Mother's Day and men this, and we owe you something. We
Well,
owe you something.
look at that statement from Melinda. Instead of creating a police group for the entertainment district downtown in Starland area, hire police, and you got to put. You're supposed to put the medicine where the hurt is.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so how easy would it be for us to reinstate public housing police officers? Dr. Teray, you worked in one of the public housing offices there with the Housing Authority of Savannah. How many public housing officers did we have back then? And then let's also talk about this whole need for mitigation of post-traumatic stress. You both saw the video where little babies were running up and down the stairs, hiding and dodging from bullets. The moms was screaming.
Yep.
Those same kids are expected to go to school the next day and perform. What are we doing? What are we doing, guys?
And that's exactly the point where I thrown out earlier, that again, we see this trauma is in our communities, but it's been normalized. That's what I'm saying. So something that is abnormal has been normalized by people in positions of power, people and I'm not going to say position of power, but people of responsibility, in positions of responsibility, positions that should be accountable. And then we have the media also. And then what happens for that average citizen? So now they're thinking it's okay, because then they think they don't have the wherewithal to speak out and demand justice for themselves. And that, just like you said, here go children who now have to go function in a pre-K or in a daycare or in a kindergarten or in a primary school or in a secondary school. They have to function, and nobody's thinking about any of that. They already have, again, the stress and the burden from generational trauma, but then now it's got it right there in their face, PTSD. Because guess what? With PTSD, you don't have to experience it yourself to have PTSD. You can even be told about it, and you can experience PTSD. And I want to say anything. And so I'm looking at saying elected officials who are right here, who's supposed to be bright, who's supposed to be intelligent. Because I'm saying that because they think they have all the answers. If you know you're not intelligent, you're not bright, you listen to other people. That's why I listen to other people. I know I'm not bright.
That's what you call leadership.
Right. That's why I got to listen to other people for y'all to give me some thoughts. And then, like I tell you, then I take that information. But if you are bright and you're intelligent and you know everything, then you should know you should be doing something. And again, it goes right back to what you all throwing out there. No accountability of no one, of people in positions who are elected to positions or positions that they have some authority. Because I'm going to say this right here to y'all too, that you have people, even though they might not be elected to office, they still have responsibility. And one thing I share with folks, and I'll end that this past Saturday, Hollis Mitchell held a violence, brothers killing brothers rally. And the thing I asked the question to everyone who was there when I had the chance to say something, I said, what is the greatest gang in this country right here? What's the greatest gang? So people started naming it. I said, no, it's not. It's the government. It's local government, county government, state government, federal government, because they can kill you. They can take your life, take your property, and there's no recourse that you have. That's the greatest gang. And I said, so here, that is, I said, and how do we become a part of the gang? By becoming voters, by basically now registering to vote and not also taking those positions, having sincere people who not take over. And guess what then happened? Jay Melder, our city manager, when I called him up to speak, Jay Melder then said to everyone that he said, I'm the leader of this gang. He understood that. He understood that. Here goes some other people who have responsibility also, just like Jay Melder, they brushed it off. They were like, they didn't want to be a part of it. I'm like saying that is a part of accountability. We got to hold folks accountable in this city, in this county, because we're in Savannah right now, but we know collectively this entire country. But we got to do it because people who are so smart do not want to be held accountable. But that's why it's your job as the citizens that now and advocates that now hold them accountable.
And that's a good place to start, Dr. Teray. And I want us to keep that in mind. I'm going to throw it to John real quick, but Dr. Teray, there was a term I told you to remind me of because I want to talk about it tonight. So I want to close with that. If you remember what that was.
Oh yeah, I know what it is because I tell them. I say, yeah, I'm sure. Yes,
okay.
ma'am.
So, John, I'm glad you worked out your technical difficulties. Just by way of recap, I want you to kind of give us your piece on what we talked about today as it related to the media and their responsibility and how safe we are and how safe we are not. But also, Dr. Smalls presented another approach, and we talked about the demography of who this crime is happening to. And I added that if it were any other demographic that was dying at the rate and way African-American men and boys are dying, far more than what's being done now would be done.
Well, that's a big question. Our society and our culture, and I can mean that to say right here in River City and Savannah, has a historic predisposition to marginalizing people, siloing power and wealth, not letting it dribble out laterally to people. This is the culture we've built, we've inherited, and trying to change. It's very monolithic. It's very historic. It's so long running. This is a systematic problem that isn't easily grappled with and corrected. I'm sorry to say that. I don't mean to be pessimistic about it, but I'm part of the privileged class. I recognize that, but I'm not blind to what's happening in my neighborhood, in the next neighborhood, or even cross town. To the media issue and how they play a role, how they are complicit in it, is, first of all, they don't get it. They don't. I don't think they realize what I just expanded on, that this is a systemic problem and that they could be doing something to unravel that. They are creatures of habit. They are part of the culture and the institution. And so innovation and change is not inherently part of their game. The journalistic standards of, and I hate to cite Jefferson because he was a slave owner and a dick in many regards, forgive me, but he did kind of set down kind of some standards for the role of journalism in our culture. The local TV stations are so behind the eight ball with their profit models and their market penetration because their industry has been fragmentized. It's been fragmentized for a long time, since MTV and CNN happened. Things got splintered into a million different pieces, and they're not coming back together. So they have struggled for a long time. And one of the things that I mentioned to you today is that one way to appease stockholders is to try to hold your profits by cutting expenses. What cutting expenses means is, I remember the day, when Leonard and I would do a press conference and they would send a news crew. It would consist of a reporter and a cameraman, and he would set up the shot and get it, and they would go back to the station or their next call, and then they would edit the thing together. Well, today it's one reporter showing up with a cell phone in many cases, not even a professional camera. So they don't have the staff because they have such an intense profit motive. They can't do journalism. That it's not in their DNA now. So if we're thinking that somehow there's going to be a renaissance in the local media, don't hold your breath. I think that TV industry is gone. That's why you see 50% of your newscast now is weather and traffic. And that's because weather and traffic costs very little to produce compared to going out to a news conference or covering a crime incident or talking with experts about their solutions. So I don't know if that helps at all, but
well, let me put a caveat on that.
All right.
Since I own media, since I actually own media properties,
yeah,
their formula is horrible and it doesn't work. Okay, that's the first thing. You tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and you'll have valuable media products. Right now, this show is being simulcast in 15 counties over my radio stations. Right now. That means the people in those areas are aware of what's transpiring and what goes wrong in systems. And when something goes wrong in their communities, they'll call and we'll go up and we'll intervene. If there's a shooting by a police officer in Milledgeville, they call, we sit with 100 black men of Milledgeville, and we get with the sheriff and it works smooth. Here in Savannah, Georgia, a man allegedly, and I don't believe 1 minute, that Zach killed himself on his knees with a shoestring out of his shoes that he tied to something else other than the place where his handcuff was. It doesn't make physical sense. It doesn't make psychological sense, strategic sense. But and in an interrogation room that didn't have film or sound. In 2021, that doesn't happen, and the people in the streets, the kids in the streets, realize it's dog eat dog when you deal with something like that, and so they don't. How you gonna trust somebody with that story? And then wait a minute, we have a police chief whose contract ran out last August. His contract, he has a contract. Contract ran out last August. So why didn't anybody decide we're going to evaluate whether we should keep them or not?
Well, Alderwoman Blakely, Alderwoman Lanier, and myself, we have known and we have requested an executive session to discuss personnel multiple times, and they are now hiding behind the childish foolishness of the city attorney acknowledged that I don't think this council should go into executive session. Well, the last time I checked, he reported to the city council. I have never seen, and you know, we talk a lot about black and white and what's happening to black people, but I'm telling you, so much damage has been done at the hands of black people who are in leadership to black people. Like, let's stop already. Like, stop drinking from that fake fountain. You know, here we are, a sitting majority on council with an African-American mayor. On our hands, the blood of so many black men, more than ever on any administration in the history of Savannah.
Come on now.
And so this should even be a sounding alarm to those who are non-black. If we don't care about ourselves, how can we care about you? This is not a racist issue. This is an elitist and a classist issue that we're facing here in Savannah. Savannah generates the most money for Georgia, only second to Atlanta. We boast of having one of the largest and strongest ports in the nation. And with all of that resource, all of that capital, we are still and steadily creeping up on 3 times the national average in poverty. You see, all of these issues in totality go hand in hand.
They do.
And if we're not laser focused on trying to solve the most pressing issue against us and against the most vulnerable in our community, our children, come on, we can't have this. We shouldn't need the shock value. We shouldn't need the awe of a 15-year-old girl being gunned down in the public housing division to get it or to think that we have a problem.
Yeah. Pastor, do we all need to go back to church more often?
Yeah, you need to come to Litway. So no, the church is a part of it, but let me point out how broken we are. Okay, how obviously broken we are. I'm gonna give you a small indicator. Got a call today, and I know about the exhibit. Someone visited the museum in Montgomery, Alabama.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Okay. And in the museum in Montgomery, Alabama, there is this display concerning the weeping time. Now, how can we have a display in a museum commemorating an event that happened in Savannah, Georgia, the largest sale of slaves in American history, and we have a plaque a half mile away from where the people were sold with a lie on the top that says the largest sales of slaves in Georgia history. Now, someone decided to mitigate the awesomeness of this event. You know, that's just raw propaganda. Instead of saying, as it says all over the world, that this is the largest sale of slaves in American history, why do we have a sign that says in Georgia history, and then why do we have it a half mile away from the site? On top of that, how could this even be an issue when there is a super majority of Black folk on council? Well, Leonard, I'm going to ask you a question. Are they really Black? I think John McMaster's a little blacker than a bunch of them people.
Well, you know, Pastor, I have a point greater than that. If our nation's capital recognized and have paid homage to the weeping time,
it's there also
in the African American Museum there in DC. Of all African American history they could have recognized, they looked down on little old Savannah, Georgia, and saw this egregious atrocity that took place in 1859. And we ourselves here in Savannah, as you stated, don't even have it or recognize it as a blip on the radar. Dr. Teray, what was that term, sir?
What occurred was that when I did the video, someone responded. They said, what about, and I talked about leadership from the churches to political leaders. And then the person asked the person, and the person was a supporter. And he said, what about families? And I told him, I said, it's a holistic approach. It is holistic. I said, but there's a societal safety net, and that is the role of government. They're supposed to be about general welfare, health, and safety. So there's a society. So if the parents don't make it, or not able to do it, guess what? A societal safety net, that's our government. And we don't have a societal safety net here.
And that whole notion came up because I had a conversation with someone and we were discussing this issue of crime. And I mentioned the Board of Education having to join in the responsibility of how we respond to this issue. It takes all of us, not just one governmental entity. And she said, well, Kesha, it's the parents' fault. And, you know, for me, when I hear that, I cringe. You know, I come from a place of service. Those who are and were among the least, the last, the lost, left out in the lost of people. And so I'm always gravitating to that low road, looking to pull people up, regardless of how they got there. And so for me, as an elected servant, when I see that the coffers of our resources are plentiful, it's a little bit lazy and a little bit selfish for me to say it's the moms and the dads. You know, when you have leaders who say, moms, do you know where your children are? When you have leaders who are advocating for parents to get locked up, you know, I would possibly hinge on that, just maybe, Pastor Small, maybe if we have been progressive and aggressive in working toward increased wages, just maybe if, we looked at that CARES Act funding that came out and we had 90% of the businesses, particularly those small businesses of struggling parents in Yamakra and Fraser Homes, if they had got those homes, just maybe I'll be putting it on the parents. Maybe I'll be putting it on the parents if they were working in a hospitality industry, a tourism industry, where we looked at giving them free parking and help with childcare and provided support aids for education, just maybe. But because we haven't done any of it, don't you dare talk to me about what parents should and should not be doing.
Well, let me do this for you, because I get so angry when somebody is that stupid.
Yes.
Okay, here's the question. So you are working as hard as you can, 2 or 3 jobs, and you can't afford anywhere to live. And so and all the Section 8 housing is gone. And you've been put out of the little house, ragged house you could afford in Clearview. And now you're a single mother who is struggling to raise and keep her family together. 4 or 5 children that you tried to get along with the man, but he didn't work out. And so now they've put you out of Clearview. They've not made any arrangements in the process because that wasn't public housing. And now you and your children are living on a day-to-day basis in the hotel on Highway 17. The school bus is full every morning. It pulls up in front of the hotel on 17.
The dignity, the shame.
Now that woman is working to keep those kids together. Let me give you the other portion. The oldest kid is a boy. He's 16 years old. He's watching his mother be with men in order to keep a roof over their head. And I wish you Christians will say she ain't no good because she's sleeping with somebody to keep her children from being cold. I wish you would tell me that. You're just wrong and stupid. And Jesus would never say something like that. He would have pity on her heart. She's trying to hold her family together. And you're looking down at her. I want to meet you someplace so I could beat you someplace. This is wrong.
Yes.
We are short-sighted and uncaring. Yes. And you're saying you're a Christian? I'm not talking about the people who don't go to church. I'm talking about the ones who go to church. And you don't understand who are the least of these? That woman is one of the least of these, which means she is Jesus. Because Jesus said, that what you do to the least of these, you do to me. And if you talk bad about her, degrade her, downgrade her, hate her, make her feel worse about her condition while she's struggling, then you're doing it to Christ, and you're going to bust hell wide open if you don't change. And that's the preacher's words.
And it makes me sad to know that I have friends and family members who think that way. They are secure in the sanctity of their fake security. Mm-hmm. And until something comes knocking on their door or the door of someone they know and love, they do not get it. And so here we are, the voice of reason, the voice of real, and the voice of hope, seeking to educate and inform. And so we want you all to know that we're trying as hard as we can, pushing and pressing. I've given all but all of my names. I have no more to give except for myself for continual service. And that's what I can promise to the people who need what we advocate for, and to those who don't realize they need it. Anyone wants to make some parting remarks? And we want to thank you all for connecting with us and helping us solidify this message tonight that crime is not just now high. Crime has been getting high since 2020. And we have not responded to it in a real way. I do want to add that one of my appeals to our city manager as he came in was to extend additional resources or resources, period. It's never been done in the history of Savannah, to our Little League teams, recreation. Pastor Small, thanks to you for helping to shepherd us in those conversations and getting that work done. But it's not enough. I'm not going to be satisfied. I'm not going to be satisfied. No, it's never enough. It's never enough. As I stated, we trip over money walking in and out of City Hall, and we flush it down the toilet. And until we are allocating it in places where a difference can be felt, we are still going to be advocating for more.
Well, I'm going to have to leave. I've given you my sermon for this evening, but I do want you all to know that what Kesha, she wasn't expecting me to say this, but what Kesha Gibson Carter has gone through these last 16, 17 months is horrendous. She's been beat down, talked about, pushed around. For what? For keeping her promise? For standing on the wall? For doing what she said she was going to go there to do? To stand up and speak up for those who have been left behind, put down, disenfranchised, who've fallen through the cracks that were fashioned for them to fall through. There is no difference between what her and Alicia and Renetta have gone through when they were trying to help us with the weeping time. There's no difference between that and what happened to Fannie Lou Hamer, Barbara Jordan, when she had the audacity to say she would run for national office. And what happened to Maxine Waters dealing with President Trump? There's no difference. She's had to come home to a strong husband who wanted to go down there and knock the gold off the dome. But he understood that she wasn't there for him, or even for hers. She was there for us, and particularly the least of us. It is an extraordinary thing for me to watch my own Harriet Tubman, my own Mary McLeod Bethune, my own Fannie Lou Hamer, and know that she's my friend. I am privileged to be a part of her life and a part of her family. Thank you for this extraordinary opportunity. We love you.
Well, I did not expect that. I would have recorded it otherwise. Producer, can we get that again? No, sir. I am so humble, and I want to say I am truly not worthy to have my name whispered among those awesome women.
I got to get off here before I cry.
Okay.
I love you.
And I love you too, sir. And I just want to say that I don't feel the pain that he just expressed. I don't feel it, and that's how I know that I'm doing the right thing. So I'm good. I'm okay. My family, they were prepared. So Carters don't quit and Carters don't lose. And with that, I want to thank you, gentlemen, for tuning in tonight. And I want to try to get him to come on at the end of every show. I think that'll help me run on just a little bit longer. And, thank you so much, Dr. Teray, for always saying yes. And we want to give a plug to an event that you are having. And I don't know if it's open to the public or how it could be shared or viewed, but if you want to tell us about that.
Yes, it is open to the public. It is Crack Teeth Family, which is the Georgia Southern Gullah-Geechee Center Community Conversation. Crack Teeth Family's community conversation, open to any and everyone. And this community conversation is about violence in Savannah. And I call it Saving Savannah, because I used the phrase that Prince Jackson had used on us decades ago with people concerned about Savannah State being merged with Armstrong. And he said, your house is on fire. Your house is on fire. Savannah house is on fire. Our house is on fire. And so we're going to have community conversation where we talk about solutions. Again, seeds of solution. I call it seeds of solution. Not to say we're going to resolve all of it right then. It is at 6 o'clock on Friday, May 13th, 6 o'clock p.m. at the Armstrong Center, Suite 102, which was the old public Suite 102 And I posted some stuff on social media with regard to that. And so if anyone want to contact me, just hit me up via social media or contact us at our number 912-220-5966, 912-220-5966, and it's open to the public. We want people to come have conversations.
And Dr. Teray, if you don't mind, if you could put some of that information in our chat so it'll be there in case somebody view during the week. McMasters, thank you again, sir. What can we look forward to coming from Better Savannah? We know you have a handful of candidates you are endorsing. If you want to whisper them in the air here, you feel free to do so. But if you want to give us the date and time of your upcoming show.
Well, thank you first for having me, and particularly amongst people like Jamal and Pastor Small. It's always an honor to be asked, and whatever I contribute, I do from my heart. It's not always big and significant, but it is. You have my support, my admiration for the way you've done your job, Kesha. You made commitments to your voters, and you are endeavoring to deliver on them. You're getting bullied and beat up, and you're still standing tall and going at it, and that's true leadership. So I appreciate you for that. Better Savannah, just quickly, we're happy. Oh, thank you.
Happy birthday, John. I didn't realize it was your birthday.
Yeah, it was. Thank you very much. Just check out Better Savannah Facebook page. You'll see kind of where we're going, which is a limited spectrum of endorsements in this primary. We'll be a lot more focused on the runoff, and we expect some. And we also will be involved in the general election in November. I personally am leaving for California for a month right after I vote on election day. But Chuck and we have some help coming from the ATR side of the House, and we're thrilled to have that. I just want to say too that the collective power and reach of ATR, Better Savannah, For Us, By Us. I mean, we have really built a strong line of communication into, probably 20, 30,000 people here.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning For Us, By Us with Alderwoman Alicia Miller Blakely. I think she actually sort of paved the way for all of this.
Yes, she did. Remind her I've never been on her show, and I would love to.
I will tell her you're leaving soon. It was your birthday, and you need to have John on your show.
Absolutely. So thanks.
Well, listen, you guys have been great as always. You make this too easy. As I stated before, we're in it to win it. Carters don't quit, and we want Savannah to know that I love you so very much. Good night.
A proud alumna of Herschel V. Jenkins High School, Keisha Carter. Yes, who transferred over to Savannah High. She transferred to Savannah High.
Blue jacket. See, you see the blue blood running through.
But that's why I wore red. I got the cap that you used to wear. Like this.
I like that.